end up taking more space, I'm not sure. But if it makes sense to do so, I know there's some people trying to get it in the hallway.
Just no. If we put chairs in that space there, we can get access by going through the back room and coming up the aisle. That was our original plan. So we just want to roll some chairs out of the boardroom there.
Oh, you're fine. Yeah. Easy for you.
I'm fine. I think it's wonderful. It's a small room.
You can hear the voice.
And it's been actually this will and a lot of people working together very closely over a long time period. And you're still happy with your organization, and you still think it's the best organization you work for. So that says something.
That really does say something.
I appreciate that. Indeed. I want to just echo what my colleagues have been saying, and just start by thanking all of the donors who contributed to this project. And in particular, I do want to single out Hal, this is right here again, for being the catalyst and kicking this off. I'm going to use the word catalyst a few times, and I think it has an extended meaning. There are people here who have catalyzed this, and the organization itself, I think, is becoming a real catalyst in the community. So I want to thank Hal. I want to thank another fellow named Ray Van Enoch, who couldn't make it today, but also gave a significant amount in terms of financial support. And then, of course, many of you also VIP donors, signing up to the gala at the VIP rate. We really appreciate that. I know some people just have the capacity, they can give more than others, but I want you to know everybody who gives, it does make a difference, and it all does add up, and it added up to the point where we had to increase our goal a couple of times, and then we ended up making more than we had anticipated, even with that extended goal of 75,000. So again, I really want to thank you, because we were able to find a nicer space, we were able to find a space that's going to be more functional. We're going to be able to do so much more, and in other words, help more families, which is really what it comes down to because of your generosity. So thank you for doing that. Let me pick up on something Robert said about kind of not being sure if we could manage this. And I just want to add to that. We did all of this. Not only did we do all of this, we did it in 10 months' time. I mean, I can't believe we did all of this in under a year. It was November of 2016 when the idea, the concept of a center in the capital kind of came up. And from that point on, we had to, first make sure that the local team was behind it. Obviously, that's where you start. And indeed, the resounding interest in having a center like this in the capital was overwhelming. And then we approached Hal, who's always been an amazing and generous supporter and philanthropist for the cause of men, boys, and fathers, and he was on board. And then we created a project plan, and we got some other leading donors. We did a crowdfunding campaign that many of you contributed to. We found a space. We found a great executive director who you've heard from, Patrick. We built a governance team. We furnished this place. It's looking beautiful. I mean, 10 months. I think most of you, if not all of you, had something to do with that. I want you to give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you so much. And if you didn't, you will, because we're going to get all of you on board. There's a lot of work still to do. The importance of Ottawa, as has been said already, cannot be overstated. We do have lots of things going on around the country, but it was always a priority for us that we have a space dedicated to this cause of men, boys, fathers, and families in the capital. And I think those of you who live in this political town don't need me to tell you that there are many issues confronting men, boys, fathers, and families where, let's just say, different governments might not always have an inclusive kind of mindset. I'm trying to be careful with my words here. I just think that there's a lot we can do to improve public policies and make them more inclusive, make sure nobody slips through the cracks, whether we're talking about policies around domestic violence, policies around families and family breakup, policies around health and mental health in particular. There's a lot of work to do, and this is a critical city to be doing it in. Not only will we be setting up, as we've already begun to do, programs and services to support the individuals in the communities in Ottawa, but also through our public policy and advocacy work, the footprint of this center is going to be felt all across the country. And so it's just so exciting that we're getting started here. I did mention catalyzing change. So let me talk a little bit more about the services. This is something I'm very familiar with from managing the Toronto Centre for Men and Families the last few years. And what we've noticed, and maybe this is going to run a little bit counter to what some people think, is that there's been a lot of inertia to get a Centre for Men and Families off the ground. But it's not because the people in the social service community or the people in government and public policy or the foundations that support these causes. These are not bad people. These are overwhelmingly good people. The problem is, and we're actually just having this conversation in the car ride over here, that everybody saw it as somebody else's job. You know, the policymakers thought that they would get to it when there was enough public support and push and pull from the social service sector. Social service sector never has enough resources, money, and people to even do their mandate, let alone, you know, expand their mandate. So I think instead of kind of picking who to blame, what was really needed was somebody to come forward and champion this cause of men and boys. And that's been CAFE. And that's been the Center for Men and Families in Toronto, now in Ottawa, and in other places where we're setting up similar services. And what we've noticed is that once we do that, once we say, look, no longer acceptable to ignore these critical issues affecting men and boys, we are going to be the champions for men and boys, you find a lot of those people are very willing to contribute something, whether it's money, whether it's referring clients to us, whether it's co-hosting conferences with us, which is something we've been doing with some very prominent organizations in Toronto, whether it's just speaking out to the community on behalf of our organization, helping us establish credibility. We find that we can ask a lot from people and from organizations, and they're willing to do that, provided that we're there to catalyze that fundamental change. And that's been a very surprising, I should say, but a very pleasantly surprising development. I want to speak to why what's happening in Ottawa over the last 10 months or so is so important nationally. Let me talk a little bit in terms of where the organization is trying to go, because what we've been seeing over the last few months is as Ottawa gets off the ground, there is a healthy amount of envy, I think, from the rest of the CAFE family. Everybody wants to see a center in their backyard, and this is, I guess this is kind of a positive kind of NIMBYism, if you will. You know, Edmonton, we have a branch there. They want to have a center. Calgary wants to have a center like this space. London, Ontario is working on it, and Jim and Darren are here from London, Ontario, and I know that they're very passionate about that. And I think Toronto and Ottawa, seeing that this can be done in multiple cities, multiple locations, has really galvanized this interest in every community needs to get on board to bring critical programs and services to the men and families, because these gaps, they're not unique to any one city. These gaps, we see them all over the country. The other thing that having a second center, a second robust center like this has done, is it's forced our organization to undertake some very serious and some very significant governance and policy changes so that we can actually support multiple centers. And you know, that might be a kind of boring thing for me to bring up, but it's really quite critical, because it's not just opening centers, it's also sustaining them, building the infrastructure. That's the financial side of things, that's the human resource side of things, that's also the governance, the policy side of things. And we've become a much more, I think, mature, sophisticated, and professional charitable organization as a result of having to go through some, I think, very positive upheavals in the way we do business. So I want to thank Ottawa for pulling us almost kicking and screaming through that process, but we've come out the other side, and David still enjoys the organization, so that's a very good thing. And then lastly, I just want to conclude by thanking the amazing team of volunteers. You've heard some of them named. Let me just, maybe by show of hands, I mean, who's involved in the, you know, the governance board that we've created, or the executive team at CAFE Ottawa, or who's contributed in some other way? Just put your hands up if you've contributed in any kind of way to the organization as a volunteer. Yeah. So about half the room or so, and the other half is going to be recruited today too. And I guess the last thing I'll just say, again, back to my theme of being a catalyst. I mean, all of you really are catalysts for change. If the organization, if the agency, CAFE and the Center for Men and Families, is catalyzing change in terms of the social service sector and the public policy sector, well, you folks are the individuals who catalyze us to make those changes happen, and to do it in a positive way, which is something I think is so important. Because you can do this in a negative way. You can do this in a way that backfires and that doesn't get you the kind of change that you want. But I think CAFE has taken a very different tact. We've taken a tact of being positive and being optimistic and being champions for change, and being willing to work with any individuals or groups that share that positive outlook, that they want to do something to improve the situation for boys, men, fathers, and families. So always stay positive. There will be challenges ahead. We know that that is a part of what we do. But if we stay positive and we continue to grow this amazing team, and many of you are already on that team, then I think that the future is looking very, very bright. Thanks so much for being here today.